incident that you wrote a mail to Dean, and what time of the day did the sighting take place?
A bit after dinner time, because I think, if I go by memory, we had dinner at Braidwood near the swimming pool, and because it was probably half an hour half an hour or more after we left Braidwood.
Okay, so it was definitely during the day.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Where exactly did the incident take place?
Okay, well, exactly I'm not sure, except for the fact that it's a good road and it's high up in the mountains. Again, Braidwood, I get this feelings on a sort of a plateau or part of the dividing range or something.
That's right, and you head down a sort of a windy mountain pass to get down to the coast.
That's right, we're on the downward side, starting to go down, and on our way down, because we were part way down, I said to myself, I said to reverse, I think I'll just pull over because the road was wide and they'd been working. There's lots of wide spots.
So you were winding down from the plateau at that stage, or was it fairly straight road?
It was winding. It was a windy road because we must have been sort of possibly halfway down. So I thought I'd better pull over and check, just give the brakes a rest because I'd done that mistake once before.
Take me through what happened when you actually pulled over.
Okay, I pulled over. Now what I recollect is that I sort of got out and had a look and a smell around. Says, yeah, it's okay. And I sort of we'll just give it a minute. And I sat in the car for a second and looked in the mirror. I was in the car and I saw this, whatever we want to call it, a creature or a man-like creature. I saw this, and my wife seems to think at the same time she looked over and I had said to her, heck, or whatever it was, what on earth is that, or whatever, and she saw it basically at the same time.
Did she look back through the rear window of the vehicle?
Yeah, she looked back through. She wasn't outside. She looked back. I actually turned around too, but I saw it first in the mirror. Bright, plain as day. Very plain as day, and so did she. And the kids remember it. We feel that they might not have seen it, but they remember from what we said. I have a funny feeling that they turned round and looked, because one of them kids would have been 11 or 12. I asked her today, and she can't herself remember seeing it, but more the talk of it. But between myself and my wife, we definitely saw this. And it was probably 200 metres back, say, 150. But it was quite plain. It was crossing the road, and as my wife always puts it, it definitely waited for us to go past. There was no other traffic going the other way, and it crossed, walking slightly away from us, diagonally sort of away from us to the other side.
What sort of country were you in? Was it fairly heavily bushed on both sides?
No, yes it is, but it's because they've been doing the roads, it was well cleared. In fact, what she said, he was walking across to an area that was like a turning spot where the trucks were, and it went into the bush, but it was a wider spot, because, again, they've been doing a lot of work, probably only months before, I'd say.
You saw it in the rearview mirror. Did you then turn around and get a good look of it?
Oh, yes.
Sort of directly?
Yes. He actually looked over his back, looked sort of back, not turned and stood, but sort of looked over his shoulder as he kept going. Wasn't stopping. It was going a reasonable pace to get across the road and get it back into the bush. We watched it basically sort of disappearing sort of off the road and into the bush.
Was it crossing from your side of the road to the other,
That's right.
From the left to the right? As you were driving down, you're on the left-hand side of the road, it was on the left, crossing to the right?
That's right, yeah, we're on the left, so yes, left to right.
You turned back and watched it for a second. What happened after that?
Well, more than a second. Actually for, I don't know, it could be 5 or 10. But it just didn't disappear. It just wasn't the last fleeting glimpse of it. We watched him cross the road. You get a feeling it's a man too, Don't know why, but you do. Because it's got no clothes on. It's got this, a matted, I'll be honest, it's sort of matted, light browny, fawny, sort of, get the impression it's matted because it's just the way it looks, sort of hair or whatever from top to bottom. As I say, probably large stature. Wouldn't call him monstrous, but something like 7 foot or possibly a bit bigger.
As you watched it just disappeared into the bush?
Disappeared into the bush, and hard to believe because we talked about it for some time afterwards.
What, you were still at the same spot and you were talking about it, or?
Oh, well, it was at the end of that after it disappeared, we found it hard to believe what we saw, but still said, let's get out of here. You know, the sort of thing, you don't normally, not everybody react that way, but we sort of said, well, let's get out of here. Couldn't quite believe what we'd seen.
What was the conversation between yourself and your wife?
Well, later on we went over it. I mean, in a sort of next day and days after, we went over it, basically saying what we saw, but couldn't still believe it.
Did you tell anybody about this?
No, only with the children. Never sort of, I know that sounds strange, we never sort of always thought about it, sort of couldn't believe it. But it was there, and it was very real. And he walked across, as I say, reasonably good speed. Everything was real, you know, no clothes on, but we didn't see anything. It was sort of, just sort of, here all over.
You mentioned the height was bigger than 7 feet or around 7 feet?
Oh, a good 7 foot, that's for sure. Possibly,
Okay.
as I say, taller. He was, say, 100. So you've got I'm not too bad on heights and sizes. Quite good with dimensions. Probably 150 metres back, up the hill slightly. Slight curve in that part of the road.
It was on the road.
But he was on the road. He walked across the road, and that's where we saw him going nearly from probably from halfway, probably from the middle of the road to into the bush. It was going somewhere. It was getting across the road when the idea we thought that, yes, it didn't want to be seen. Yet, he did look over his shoulder, and it would have been obvious that, you know,
That you were there.
that we were there.
When it looked over its shoulder, did it turn its head or did it move its whole upper body?
I didn't see the whole upper. Did not see the whole upper body go. Let me think.
Was it a human response where it just turned its head, or it just seemed that natural, or was it a body movement?
But I'll be honest, it seemed by memory that it was a reasonably natural way to do it. That the whole body really didn't shift. It was more of the head rather than, you know, like, not as if it had a neck, if I know what you mean, but all I know is his face came around to see us in that way.
Did you get a feeling for weight? Let's say, do you know what you weigh?
Yeah, say 84.
Comparing yourself to this thing, have you got an idea of how much it might weigh?
1.5 times me.
Okay, 1.5 times. Did it look like was it a solid looking thing, or was it a muscly looking thing, or was it a relatively sort of, you know, lanky looking thing?
Not lanky. I'm not sure about the solid bit, but definitely a reasonable amount of it, and the upper stature was definitely there. In fact, it sort of followed all the way down.
As it moved, was it standing pretty much bolt upright, or was it wasn't hunched over or anything like
No,
that?
it wasn't.
Did you notice arms and legs, everything?
Legs seemed, arms, sorry, seemed just a touch longer. Oh, longer than a human's arms, it appears. But you probably got to remember that the amount of sort of hair, it's not hair again, more like, I'm trying to think of a shaggy sheepdog, that type of thing, in this light fawny, light browny type colour.
That was the colour, it was like a light brown colour.
Light browny or fawn, I think, is a similar colour.
Was it the same colour all over?
Very similar, yeah. It was, it didn't like have black and white patches or anything. It was basically the same colour from top to bottom. Maybe a little bit, not a plain colour, because that's why it gives me the impression that it was matted. That it wasn't plain, but textured from one end of the to the bottom, if you like. But the basic colour was this light browny, fawny colour.
So it wasn't smooth like a bear's hair. It seemed different.
Yes, not like a bear. Nothing like a bear. No.
Would you say the hair was sort of like it was long and wild, or how did you feel the hair looked?
It wasn't well kept. It was longer sort of hair. It was, because it was longer, it was also matted. Like a bear's hair is more like some goats actually.
Okay, and did you notice that it was shorter anyway? I mean, on the head, did it look as long as it was everywhere else?
It appeared to be very similar all over.
When the animal turned around and looked at you, did you get a sense of a face, or did you notice any features on the face?
It did. There was a definite type of face there for sure.
Did it look like an animal or a human?
Human.
What gave you that impression? Just the overall impression, or was there anything particular?
Overall impression where I think it was lacking hair there. I believe, it wasn't sort of a full-on hairy face, not like and not like, say, a gorilla. It seemed to be the shape of, because I'm getting this distance now, so I can't honestly get right into that. But this was the general impression that there was a face there.
If you were to compare it to anything, would you compare it to gorilla as to like a hairy person? If you were going to compare it to something, is there anything that would naturally you would compare it to?
Definitely not a gorilla, but mainly because the uprightness of it was definite. It was a very definite upright and a very definite good strong walk off. But not a walk as in you and I know a walk, but it was sort of getting there.
When you say it was different to you and I walking, what was the difference?
It's hastened because of probably what it was trying to do. Would I say it was maybe shorter steps but fast? I can't elaborate on that one real good because I couldn't really. As I say, I was walking slightly diagonally away from us. Yeah, I can't. Not like a person. A person's just strides, or generally sort of. Not quite like that.
The neck. Did it have a long neck or a short neck?
See much of the neck.
Didn't see much.
If at all. It was sort of the hair, sort of, as I say, from the back, it sort of took over the hairy nature, sort of, certainly. You didn't see any neck.
And you didn't see anything like ears?
Not really, no.
When it was walking, where were its hands? A walker will bring its hands up to its
Didn't
chest.
swing.
It didn't swing at all? They were hanging down by its side?
That sort of thing.
Is there anything else in the description of the thing that we haven't sort of already covered? Okay, so you were actually sitting in the front when Peter was driving?
That's right. Or whatever that I turned around, or I had all the kids in the back, or I turned around for them. I don't know exactly why I turned around, but
Sure.
yeah.
And you had a reasonably good view of it?
Just like waited till we've gone past, sort of ran across the road. That's the feeling I got. Yeah, very sort of secretly. I waited till we went past and then went across.
When you were looking at it, was it a certain colour?
Well, I thought it was sort of a light colour. Yeah, light brown maybe.
Looking at it, could it have been a person, or it just didn't look like a person?
It wasn't a person because even from where we were, it was too tall.
It was big?
It was big, yeah.
That was something you remember, it was quite
That's
big?
something that, caught my eye. I was wondering first, the idea first was why was somebody running across there, like at that time, because there was nobody else on the road at the time at all. I don't know what time it was or anything.
But during the daytime?
Yeah, it was in the day, and it was a clearing, and it just ran across behind us, yeah. But it was too big, that was the thing, and it was, I can remember, it might have been slightly hunched over the shoulders, I don't know, but that impression I've got now.
Was it just sort of naked, or did it look like it had hair on it?
It looked like it had hair on it.
Was it smooth hair, sort of like a bear, or different, or is it hard to remember?
I think it was longer, yeah.
After it ran across the road, and I guess you were both looking at it this time,
Yeah.
what was your first thing after it disappeared? And
Well, because the kids were in the back, I think we would have said something to each other about what was that or whatever, and then the kids were smaller and they'd probably just get out of here, yeah.
So you just decided to exit?
Yeah.
Have you ever talked about it much since then?
Only a couple of times when it's come up in strange things that happen, yeah. Not very often, no, I haven't talked about it a lot. Only Peter said he was going through the internet and
There was a website, yeah.
so he thought he'd put his, and I said, why'd you do that for?
Well, I'm glad you did, because certainly there's lots of people that have had very interesting experience, even in the same area as yours.
Said it was like it waited for us to go past. Wasn't maybe expecting us to stop. It was big, yeah, big. We were halfway up, and what I remember, it was on a bend of the road, and we'd sort of come up a bit of a rise, I think. I couldn't tell you in meters how far it was.
If you were going to describe it, did it look more like an animal to you or more like a person?
Well, it was on two legs. Yeah,